the idea to start Spectrum Laboratory was a process. So one thing led to another, and I found myself working as a music director for the Miracle Project, and I met Jason Weissbrod there. We'd actually known each other before, but we had a lot of chemistry working together, coming from making records and playing in bands myself, and he being a filmmaker. We kind of arrived at the idea of doing a sort of record label, making short films with artists on the autism spectrum, and just got really excited about it. And originally we were going to do a production company, but then we realized we really needed to kind of teach and facilitate the creative process with artists on the spectrum. So we decided to establish an after-school program, and that started in 2015 and has since grown into an animation wing, a music wing, an acting wing. It keeps growing. And when it began, there were just two classes. There was an acting film class, and there was a music class. And I think we had all of maybe 8 students, and slowly things have kind of just progressed. So what was 2 classes then evolved into an improv and acting class, a live ensemble class. I brought in my composition mentor, who's teaching a composition course. We started working with Danny Bowman, who has her own animation company. She came in to help work an animation side of Spectrum Laboratory. So now we have an animation wing and animators that are working with us. Without listing everything, we've gone to the point where we have about 10 classes on our roster, and we're bringing more and more teachers in. So in the 3 years since we've started, it's really cool. It's sort of marrying production in film and music with instruction and training. Some of our artists are actually getting to a pretty high and proficient level with some of what they're doing, while others are just really getting exposure and getting first-time experience with it. There's a lot, there really is, and it's something that I think we're still learning, and we're evolving in the role that we're playing in the community. And originally how I was saying that we started with the idea of becoming a production company and just making work. We're realizing that, kind of setting the bar lower and having some classes that are more entry level, that are just great exposure for, artists and young people as well, is becoming a really important thing for us too. So instead of it being kind of just a specialized program for, those with autism that are much less impacted, we're now looking into ways that we can work with those on the spectrum that are really young, and also those that are older and that may age out of other programs but still want something fulfilling to do in their lives. So it's catering to those artists on the spectrum who really do have a specialty and want to advance in their particular passion and interest, and also those on the spectrum who maybe just need exposure, need friendships, need community, and want to do it through the arts. So all of those things are happening now. And in addition to that, just the content that we're creating, I think, is really cool. Recently, we've been kind of tackling some issues that I think are important. We have a young artist with us, Steven Felder, who's looking to make a film about being an autistic and gay person. His film, Boys Don't Wear Dresses, we're in pre-production and fundraising for it. And it's speaking to a really specific portion of the autism community that I don't think gets their voice heard particularly often. Those that are, LGBTQ and also on the spectrum, and you just don't see that represented much. I certainly haven't. And then there's other work that I think is really important with other artists that are speaking out from personal experience about just difficult upbringing, about bullying, about kind of fitting into society as a young person. When we began, there was so much humor and so much comedy in what we do, and I don't think that'll ever be removed from what Spectrum Laboratory is, but I think now we're seeking more of a balance between being uplifting, hopeful, humorous, and also dealing with real issues and struggles that a lot of these artists and people that are coming to us are facing day to day. There's a lot of musicians we're working with. We've released 9 records so far, and 3 of our artists that we've been with for a few years now have released solo records. So seeing them getting an opportunity to sort of crack into the music industry and gain experience in the process of songwriting and making records, that's a really cool thing to see. And I think were it not for the team that we have, I don't know if they would get an opportunity to do what they're doing, which is really cool, super creative. I think the biggest challenge in starting Spec Labs, and maybe the first couple years it was a bigger challenge than it is now, is just the way that my lifestyle has shifted and changed. Because I still am, I'm a musician, and before I did Spec Labs, I was teaching a bit, but I was also touring and making records, and I would stay up late working on music, and running Spectrum Laboratory, it's been a shift. I'm all in, so I'm working full-time, beyond full-time, sometimes 80, 90 hours a week, depending on where we're at in production with all the work we're doing. So just that level of commitment, and I guess initially felt a little bit like sacrifice, because had to say no to a lot of things, had to say no to playing with a lot of my musician friends, or playing in bands or doing other gigs, because I really wanted to build this and see it get going. So initially just the amount of time and effort that was put in was a struggle. I mean, it's something that I love doing, and I think also I have to speak about my partner, Jason, who started Spec Labs with me. I think he was very much in it with me. We were, the first couple years, we were living together doing this. So it was, working nonstop, then going out and teaching, working on the projects, coming home. It was like 24/7 working on this thing. So it got to the point where, we were exhausting our energy supply trying to get this ship off the ground. And I'm grateful that I had a partner like him to share that struggle with. That made it a lot easier. We both really went through it. And we're still going through it, but now we're kind of used to it. It's like we've gotten our sea legs with this. I think the community's grown, so I think that's perhaps the biggest evolution, is seeing just a broader network and more families come into this, and just seeing how over time the meaning of what we do changes and grows. So it's something that I think a lot of families have seen growth within their own children come into the program, and that's something that only could come from time. And to see some students come in and feel like they have a place where they can really speak their mind and voice their story has been amazing. There's one student of ours, Atticus Calgary, who's been with us since we began, and recently he made a very powerful short film dealing with his anxiety, his depression, his struggle to be somebody that is very self-aware and on the autism spectrum, is aware of his differences from others that are neurotypical, and trying to accept himself. He's at a level of self-awareness where I think he understands his own deficits. So to see that he had a vehicle to express that through film, to make that film, to write it, to help direct it, was amazing. That's something that we couldn't have done in the beginning, but now we're at a point where we have enough of a team to really to do things like that. For students that are coming to us with a real vision and a dream and a desire to do something, we're able to make it happen now. And that's only because we've grown. We have more people helping us now, and our team is evolving. I think Jason, my partner in Spectrum Laboratory, had a lot of reasons for going into Spectrum Laboratory. So did I, and we both have different inspirations, and I think we both got really excited by the students you're working with. For me, coming from a musical side, I got to know a young artist, Dominique Brown, before we started Spectrum Laboratory, and he showed me his songbook. This was a book he had, I think at the time he was maybe 18. And this songbook had, I think, maybe 100 songs in it. And he picked one out that he wanted to do. And I asked him to just sing it for me, and he just a cappella sang it, and as I think he could for any of these songs that he'd written. And it was at that moment when I saw him do that I realized, we should be making records with this guy. And, there's so much more music we can make with a lot of artists that I've encountered on the autism spectrum, so much music that we could record and release. And that was the impetus, I think, for me actually really seeing it in my mind that there could be an album that's released. And 3 years later, after that moment, his record got finished, and we just put it out at our last festival. So that was really cool to just see him, to see it go from just an idea of what Dominique could do to going through the process of working with him, seeing him write, picking songs with him, getting him in the studio, having some of our other students help record and engineer him, and then complete it. So it's like, you know, it really came full circle. That idea was there to make the records. It was because of Dominique, and we actually saw it through and did it. So that was really, really exciting and inspiring for me still, because it just shows me that, you know, you can actually follow through on this thing, and what was just an idea can actually manifest. That was huge for me. I think another story, going back to Steven Felder, who we're in pre-production for his film Boys Don't Wear Dresses. He's a really inspiring guy too. We've seen in the last few years just slowly he's opened up as a writer, as an artist, and as a person. And at this last festival that we had in May, in a sense, he really came out of the closet to everyone at the same time, because there was a film that he made, a short film, where he discussed the fact that he was gay. And just seeing him get to a point where he was comfortable and confident enough to do that was really cool. Really, I think just gives us more confidence in what we're doing, and that it's working, and that it's helping people on the spectrum develop themselves. And you know, now we're really fundraising and working hard to get his film made that he's written, and we'll be helping to direct with Jason Weissbrod. That's a really inspiring story. I think that one's going to be felt by a lot of people. So Spec Fest is a festival for music and film. And it's something that Jason and I started with Spectrum Laboratory because we wanted to build a platform where artists on the spectrum could be featured and could be presented to the public. It's a place where, you know, we feature live music. We have a band that we work with of all autistic musicians. We release new records for our artists. We get a chance to debut our short films that are made throughout the year. It's a culmination for our program, and it's also, it's something that we really want to become, is a platform for artists on the spectrum to really share what they've done. I think we've done it 5 times. Yeah, we've had our 5th festival, so our next one will be our 6th. And we have our eyes set on doing it at the Grammy Museum. We're really hoping that we can kind of boost the cachet and prestige of the event, because we think it really deserves it. These artists are so great that they should have a really fantastic venue. That said, we've been doing it at the Huffington Center, the St. Sophia Cathedral, which has been a wonderful place to do it so far. Has a wonderful screen. We've been able to view all our films, and we've brought in and built a stage out every festival for all of our music. So this summer, I started with Nava Paskowitz, one of the heads of the Ed Asner Family Center, something called Camp Ed. And essentially, they brought in the Spectrum Laboratory to provide all sorts of arts programming. And I myself was brought in to be a director for the camp. It's been really cool. I'm just kind of blown away by Nava and Matt as well. We went from, you know, just an idea for a camp to a full-blown camp in a matter of like 6 weeks. You know, so that just sort of shows you how driven and how capable they are to work with. So I'm a huge fan of them. And I think this camp is sort of like the first stepping stone for the Ed Asner Family Center. I think it's sort of the demonstration to the community in LA that just a taste of what they're going to provide. I know for them it's really important that they have treatment, not just, or I should say treatment, but they have programming for not just people on the spectrum, but also families. And you see that in the camp. There's this really cool thing that happens on Wednesdays in the camp. We go on field trips, and while all of the campers and staff are out, Nava stays back, and she's brought in a few support staff to run some programming for parents. So going in through a variety of therapy and mindfulness training and just like a nice lunch and hang. It's really cool. And I've felt like this for a couple years now. I know Jason has as well, he's running Spectrum Laboratory with me, and we both felt like parents they need more, and we've tried to provide somewhat of a community for them, but it's hard for us to really put our finger on that because we're spending so much time with our kids. So seeing how much attention Nava and Matt want to give to that is really refreshing. It's really cool. And I know their bigger aim is to provide programming 6 or maybe even 7 days a week. And Spectrum Laboratory is going to be a big part of that. We really want to come into their center and have a home there to do what we do, because I think it's very much in line with their mission.